Welcome to The Deep Dive. I'm Mark Buzz, and with me today is Anna Buggs. We're diving into your stack of sources today.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
Yeah, and infestations, right?
Hmm.
I know you've been wanting to tackle this. A lot of our listeners have this problem.
Yeah, it's one of those things, right? Everybody has to deal with it at some point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, battling ants can be, well, honestly, a real pain. It can feel like an endless war.
Yeah, for sure. But like any good war, you got to understand your enemy, right?
Know your enemy. I like that.
That's the key to winning.
Absolutely. And hey, if you're finding our deep dive helpful today, please don't forget to follow the show and like this episode. It really helps us out. And for even more ant fighting tips, check out Simple Pest Management on social media. They've got tons of great advice.
Especially if you're in California.
Yeah, they're based out there, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's get down to business. First off, your sources all highlight that not all ants are created equal. You can't treat them all the same. Different species, different habits, which means your strategy needs to be, tailored, specific to your foe.
Absolutely. I mean, just for example, you've got carpenter ants, right? And as their name suggests, they love wood.
Oh, yeah.
So if they get into your walls,
Big trouble.
yeah, serious damage. Then you've got pavement ants, those tiny black ants you see trailing across, sidewalks and driveways.
Yeah.
Less destructive,
Right.
but still a nuisance.
Yeah, for sure.
And then there's also pharaoh ants.
Oh, yeah, those are the little ones.
Tiny.
Yellowish brown.
In
In the kitchen and bathrooms.
Yes, a real headache.
And of course, how could we forget fire ants? I think most people know about those.
Aggressive.
Yeah.
A painful sting.
And then just like good old black ants, they're everywhere.
Right, and even those, it really depends on the species, because some are different than others.
Yeah, so it's like the first step is like detective work. You got to figure out
Yeah, who are you dealing with?
exactly, like who is my ant enemy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's going to help you, understand their behavior, figure out how to control them.
Speaking of behavior, your sources emphasize, like, follow those trails.
Yes.
It's like detective work. It's actually fascinating.
It is.
Because those trails, they're not just random. They're like pheromone highways, scent markers that ants leave for their buddies, right?
Exactly. And what's so cool is that, like, different ants are attracted to different foods, right? So some are going to go for that sugar.
Okay.
Like pavement ants love sweets. But others, like carpenter ants, they might want something like peanut butter, that protein.
So that's why I noticed this in a couple of sources. They suggest, like, using a little bit of peanut butter or sugar.
Yeah, like set out a little bait, see what they go for.
Freeze those trails.
Figure out where they're coming
A
from.
little science experiment.
Exactly.
So you can find out where they're going, what they're after, and ultimately find their nest.
Yeah, you want to find their HQ, their main base.
Yeah. Because that's the source, right?
Yeah, that's the source. That's where the queen is, where they're all coming from.
Your sources mentioned all sorts of hiding spots.
Mm-hmm.
Inside the house, like wall voids, under floorboards.
Yeah, behind baseboards, electrical outlets. I mean, you name it, they can get in there.
They're so small.
Yeah.
And then outside, under rocks, mulch beds.
Oh, for sure. And then, of course, you've got those classic ant hills.
Right. Now, it's interesting, right? Because some of them, they're more obvious.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned fire ants, those hills.
Yeah, you can't miss those.
They're pavement ants, too. They have these little mounds.
Mm-hmm.
But others, like carpenter ants, they're sneaky.
Yeah, they're hidden.
They like to stay hidden.
Inside those structures.
And that makes them hard to find. But, there's a clue with carpenter ants. You see sawdust, like little piles.
Oh, yeah, that's a sure sign.
Near cracks and crevices.
Yeah, they're basically little wood-chewing machines.
That's their calling card, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah, not the kind of house guests you want, for sure. Okay, so let's say we've done our detective work. We found their nest.
All right, we found their base camp.
What's next?
Cut off their supplies. You got to force them to retreat. No food, no water, no party for the ants.
I like it.
And that means, being really diligent about sanitation.
Okay.
Clean up those crumbs. Wipe down those counters. Store your food in airtight containers.
Yeah, make it hard for them to get anything.
Exactly.
And one thing I noticed in the sources, they mentioned pet food.
Oh, yeah. Huge ant magnet.
It's like a beacon.
People forget about that.
Yeah, so keep that secured. Keep those bowls clean.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've eliminated the buffet.
Mhm.
We've cut off their food and water supply.
Mm-hmm.
But ants, they're persistent, right?
They'll find a way.
Even with a clean house, they'll find a way in.
Yeah, they're tiny. They can get through the smallest cracks.
So sealing entry points.
Yes.
It's essential. Fortify those walls. And your sources suggested, caulking around windows and doors,
Oh, yeah, definitely.
weather stripping.
For sure.
And then some even mentioned, like, diatomaceous earth. Have you ever used that?
Yeah. It's made of fossilized diatoms. Basically, they're like tiny shards of glass to ants.
Whoa, that's hardcore.
Yeah, it's a natural barrier, you know?
But it's important to remember, right, that sealing entry points, it works best with other methods. It's not like, magic bullet.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
gotta have a multi-pronged approach.
Okay, let's talk about a more long-term strategy.
Yeah.
Baiting.
Oh, baiting. The Trojan horse of ant control.
Yeah.
You're basically using a slow-acting poison
Okay.
that the worker ants will carry back to the nest.
So they think they're bringing back a treat.
Yeah, and then boom, it contaminates the whole colony.
Wow, that's clever.
But here's the thing. Different ants have different preferences when it comes to bait. Some are drawn to sweet baits. Others prefer protein-based ones.
So again, it comes back to knowing your enemy.
Exactly.
What kind of ant are you dealing with? Choose the right bait.
Exactly. And there are some, familiar brands out there, taro, borax-based baits.
Yeah.
They offer various options.
And patience, right. I know it can be frustrating. You put out the bait, you want to see results immediately, but it takes time.
Oh, for sure. You gotta let those worker ants do their job, carry that poison back to the nest.
This has been a great start. I feel like I'm learning a lot,
Me too.
but I can tell there's more to this ant investigation. Stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive, where we'll explore even more, delve deeper into the fascinating world of ant behavior, and uncover some even more advanced strategies for winning this war.
Oh, yeah. It gets good.
Stay with us.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We're continuing our ant investigation.
Yes, deeper into the world of ants, their behavior.
Oh, it's fascinating.
It really is, like how they get into our homes so precisely.
Yeah, it's impressive and frustrating all at the same time.
Right, like they're tiny, but they're so organized.
It's all about their social structure,
Yeah.
They live in these colonies. They can be massive, like hundreds,
Yeah.
thousands, millions of individuals all working together.
Millions. Okay, that explains why it feels like I'm battling an army sometimes.
Right. It's a whole society.
But how do they coordinate so well? Like there's no leader, right?
Oh, that's where it gets really cool. It's called decentralized intelligence. Basically, each ant has its own role.
Okay.
And they communicate mainly through pheromones, like chemical signals, about food, danger, even their roles in the colony.
So it's more than just those trails we talked about. It's like a whole communication network.
Exactly. It's like their own silent language, so efficient.
That's wild. So like if one ant finds food,
Yeah, it lays down a pheromone trail back to the nest. Others follow, reinforce the trail.
so they can exploit resources really quick.
Super efficiently. And, it makes you think, could we learn from this?
Oh, interesting.
There's this field biomimicry.
Okay.
It's looking at nature for inspiration.
Like how can we solve human problems by mimicking nature?
Exactly. So ant intelligence, could that help design better robots or logistics systems?
Robots working together without a central command? That's pretty cool.
Right, like cleaning up a disaster zone, delivering goods, all decentralized.
It makes you appreciate collective intelligence, even from tiny creatures.
Right. They show us you don't need a boss to get things done, just good communication and cooperation.
Okay, so we've talked about the impressive stuff, but they're also pests, right?
Mhm.
Do they do anything good for the environment?
That's a good question. And yes, they actually play a big role in a healthy ecosystem.
Really?
Yeah, they're great decomposers, break down organic matter.
They're like tiny recyclers.
Exactly. And they help aerate the soil with their tunnels, good for plant growth. Some ants are even predators. They keep other insect populations down.
Wow, I never thought of it that way. Every creature has its place.
Right. It's all connected. And understanding their role in the ecosystem actually helps us control them better.
Oh, interesting. So how does that tie back to pest control?
Well, knowing their behavior, how they communicate, forage, it helps us disrupt their systems.
Makes sense.
Like baiting, right. We exploit their foraging and sharing behavior to target the whole nest.
And patience is key there.
Oh yeah, those baits work slowly.
Right, but even after you've dealt with an infestation, you gotta stay vigilant.
Prevention is just as important. Keep things clean, seal those entry points, be mindful of food sources.
It's a constant battle.
It is, but by understanding them, we can outsmart them and, hopefully keep them out of our pantries.
Yeah. I'm learning so much, but sometimes those ants win no matter what we do.
Oh, absolutely. Some infestations are tough.
And that's when you call the pros, right?
Yeah, like simple pest management. They have the knowledge, the experience, the tools.
Yeah, they can handle the really stubborn problems.
Definitely. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot, but I'm curious about those more unconventional ant control methods.
Oh, yeah, the natural repellents.
Right. Like essential oils, coffee grounds. Stay tuned for part 3. We'll dive into those. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've gone deep into the world of ants. Their social structures, their role in the environment, and how to keep them out of our homes.
Right, we've talked about a lot. Sanitation, sealing entry points, baiting. But there's also some less conventional stuff out there.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get to. Those more natural repellents.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard about essential oils, coffee grounds. Do those actually work, or is that just like an old wives' tale?
Well, the science is a little iffy. It's mostly anecdotal,
Okay.
but there's logic behind it. Some essential oils like peppermint, tea tree, citrus.
Yeah, they all have really strong smells.
Right, they contain compounds that some ants just don't like.
So it's not just masking the scent, it's actually repelling them.
Yeah, like creating an environment they find unpleasant. Remember, ants rely on their sense of smell a lot.
For navigation, you said, and communication.
Oh, right. So if you disrupt that with a strong scent, it might deter them. Like coffee grounds, for example.
Yeah, what about those?
People think they mask the ant trails, confuse their navigation.
So like sprinkle some around entry points, maybe along those trails we've learned to identify.
Yeah, it's worth a shot, especially if you want a natural approach.
Right.
But keep in mind the effectiveness can vary. It depends on the type of ant, how strong the oil is, that kind of thing.
Okay, so not a guaranteed solution, but worth trying.
Exactly.
What about those sonic repellers? I've seen ads for those.
Oh, yeah, the ones that emit high frequency sounds...
Supposedly ants hate it.
Yeah, it's debatable. Some people say they work great,
Okay.
but the science is mixed. Some studies suggest certain frequencies might bother some ants, but nothing conclusive.
So maybe not the most reliable thing.
I think the takeaway is there's no magic bullet for ant control.
Right. It's not one size fits all.
You got to know your ant, their behavior, and then choose the right methods.
It's about being informed and persistent, and sometimes, well, sometimes those ants are just too clever.
Yeah, sometimes you need to call in reinforcements.
The pros, like simple pest management.
Exactly. They have the knowledge, the tools, they can deal with those tough infestations.
Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Right.
Well, this has been an amazing deep dive. We've learned so much about these little creatures, their social structures, the strategies we can use to manage them.
Yeah, it's been fun.
I hope everyone listening feels more empowered, more knowledgeable.
I think so.
Even though they can be pests, ants are pretty fascinating.
Yeah, for sure.
They teach us about teamwork, resilience, nature's interconnectedness.
Absolutely.
So next time you see those ants, remember what we've talked about. Approach it with knowledge and, hey, maybe even a little curiosity.
And if you need help, remember, Simple Pest Management is there.
Great resource. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep those homes ant-free.